Welcome to Echoes of the Unknown, the podcast where we'll be exploring some of the world's most fascinating unsolved mysteries. I'm Jack Montgomery, and today we're diving deep into the mysterious disappearance of Brian Shaffer, a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University. This case has haunted Columbus, Ohio for nearly 2 decades and stands today as one of true crime's most baffling mysteries. It has particularly captivated public interest because of its seemingly impossible nature. Someone walking into a building and never walking out. On the evening of April 1st, 2006, Brian seemingly vanished into thin air. His baffling disappearance left investigators and loved ones searching for answers that remain elusive to this day. Brian had everything going for him: intelligence, youth, good looks, a loving family, a serious girlfriend named Alexis Wagner, and a promising future in medicine. He was well-liked among his peers and showed no signs of personal or professional troubles. His disappearance came at a time when he was advancing in his medical studies and planning future travels with his girlfriend, making the timing particularly puzzling. The night he vanished started normally enough. After a week of studying, Brian had joined his father, Randy, for dinner at a local steakhouse. He later met up with his friend and former roommate, Clint Florence, to go bar hopping in Columbus's Arena District. They started off the night at the Ugly Tuna Saloona in the South Campus Gateway. The bar was a popular spot for college students, especially during spring break, and the night was reportedly busy with typical weekend crowds. Shortly after arriving, Brian called Alexis, who was visiting her family a few hours away. She later recalled that he said this was his chance to talk about her with his friends. Brian also told Alexis that he loved her and looked forward to seeing her in just a couple of days. Over the course of the next few hours, Brian and Clint visited several other bars before being joined by Clint's friend, Meredith Reed. She later drove the group back to the Ugly Tuna Saloona, where security footage shows Brian and his friends entering the bar around 1:15 a.m. Witnesses report he was in good spirits, drinking and socializing, and at one point was seen talking to 2 women outside. Around 5 minutes before the bar's closing at 2 a.m., he was captured for the last time on security cameras re-entering the bar. But this is where the trail goes cold. Remarkably, there is no footage of Brian ever leaving the establishment, despite extensive camera coverage of the main entrance. When the bar closed, Brian was nowhere to be seen. Clint and Meredith initially tried to locate him inside the bar, and they called his cell phone, but they were unable to get in touch with him. Assuming that Brian had simply headed back to his apartment on his own, the 2 of them drove home. That afternoon, Alexis likewise attempted to call Brian, but it went straight to voicemail. At the time, she just assumed that Brian was sleeping after his night of socializing at the bars. But she grew worried when she didn't hear from him the following day. On the morning of April 2nd, a worried Alexis reached out to Brian's father, who had likewise not heard from his son. When Randy went to check Brian's apartment, he found that his bed was made, his medical books were stacked neatly on the shelves, and his car was there. When Brian failed to show up at the airport the next day for his flight to Florida with Alexis, a police report was filed. It wasn't long before Brian's disappearance was officially listed as a missing person case. The search for Brian began immediately, with family, friends, and police scouring the area surrounding the bar. They retraced his last known steps and checked local hospitals and homeless shelters. Police interviews with bar patrons and staff from that night yielded no significant leads or explanations for Brian's vanishing. Police investigators' subsequent search revealed nothing suspicious. His apartment showed no signs of struggle or forced entry. All of his personal belongings remained untouched. His phone went straight to voicemail. Police meticulously reviewed security footage from every exit of the bar, accounting for every patron who left that night, except Brian. The thoroughness of this review makes the case even more perplexing, as it seems impossible for someone to simply vanish from a modern building that had surveillance systems. According to authorities, Brian's only other possible exit, aside from the main entrance, was through a part of the building that was under construction. However, that area would have been very difficult for Brian to navigate at night, especially considering that he was intoxicated. Investigators thoroughly searched the construction site and surrounding areas, but found no evidence of Brian's presence or any signs of foul play. When cadaver dogs eventually searched the area, they did not definitively pick up any traces of Brian there, or anywhere else around the bar for that matter. On top of that, footage from security cameras at nearby bars showed no signs of Brian. Some people speculate that Brian may have chosen to disappear voluntarily to start a new life. However, those who knew him best dismissed this possibility outright. Not only was he supposed to go on that vacation with Alexis, he reportedly had been planning to propose to her. Furthermore, his bank accounts remained untouched after he vanished, and he had made no suspicious withdrawals or preparations in advance that might indicate a planned disappearance. Brian's second year of studies at OSU proved to be particularly challenging, as his mother Renee was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. Sadly, she died just 3 weeks before Brian went missing. Although his friends told investigators that he was understandably dealing with the grief of losing his mother, none of them believed he was experiencing suicidal thoughts. Instead, they said he was focused on his approaching medical school exams before taking some time off for spring break. The investigation took an interesting turn when Brian's friend Clint, one of the last people to see him, refused to take a polygraph test. While this definitely raised suspicions, no evidence has ever connected Clint to the disappearance. However, Brian's brother Derek said several years ago that he believes Clint may know more than he let on. While he was allegedly cooperative with police investigators at first, Clint eventually retained an attorney who advised him to stop talking to authorities. In a magazine interview back in 2016, Derek said, "I didn't know Clint very well, but I always thought something was off with him. The way he talked about my brother after he went missing, kind of in a negative way. I wouldn't expect that from someone whose friend vanished." Another theory suggests foul play occurred inside the bar itself, possibly involving staff or other patrons in either an altercation gone wrong or an accidental death that was covered up. But with no witnesses ever coming forward and zero physical evidence, this remains purely speculative. The bar's layout and security measures have been extensively studied, yet no clear explanation has emerged. Months passed with no solid leads in Brian's case. Detectives even briefly considered a potential link to the so-called smiley face killers, a controversial theory proposing that a supposed network of killers is responsible for the suspicious drownings of dozens of young men across the Midwest since the 1990s. Many of the victims were college-aged men who went missing after a night of drinking, and investigators claim that graffiti of smiley faces was found near some of the crime scenes. However, no concrete connection with Brian's disappearance has ever been established, and most experts dismiss this theory outright as lacking any credible evidence. Over the years, reported sightings of Brian have surfaced across the United States and even internationally. A particularly compelling incident occurred in 2020 when a photo appeared on a Mexican missing persons website showing a man bearing a striking resemblance to Brian. However, after an FBI investigation, this lead, like all others, proved false. Each reported sighting has been thoroughly investigated, but none have provided concrete evidence of Brian's whereabouts. The case took another tragic turn in 2008 when Brian's father was killed in a freak accident, struck by a falling tree in his yard during a storm. Many hoped this devastating news might prompt Brian to make contact if he was still alive and in hiding. The continued silence only deepened the mystery and added another layer of tragedy to the family story. The involvement of online detectives and amateur investigators over the years has added layers of speculation to the case. Some believe Brian was lured away by someone he met that night. Others maintain he orchestrated his own disappearance. The rise of social media and online forums has led to countless theories and analyses of the available evidence, though none have cracked the case. The security camera footage from that night presents a particular puzzle. How could someone enter a building and never leave, especially in an era of widespread surveillance? Every exit was monitored, every person accounted for, yet Brian Shaffer simply vanished. This aspect of the case has challenged investigators and security experts alike, questioning our assumptions about modern surveillance capabilities. This case has become a landmark in discussions of mysterious disappearances, challenging our understanding of how someone can vanish from a crowded urban area in the modern age. It raises questions about the reliability of surveillance systems, the thoroughness of investigations, and the possibility that sometimes people can indeed vanish without a trace. The Columbus Police Department continues to maintain an open file on Brian's disappearance. Despite the passage of time, his loved ones haven't given up hope for answers. The case serves as a haunting reminder that even in our interconnected world, with cameras everywhere and technology at our fingertips, some mysteries remain unsolved. Anyone with information about his disappearance is encouraged to contact the Columbus Police Department, as even the smallest detail could help solve this enduring mystery. Thank you for listening to this episode of Echoes of the Unknown. So, what do you think happened to Brian Shaffer? If you have any theories, we'd love to hear them. Reach out to us on social media or email us at echoesunknownpod@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with fellow mystery lovers. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, some mysteries never die.